When I went to Warwick Junior High School back in the dork ages, I went to all the class plays and I enjoyed them. They were silly and frivolous, but they were fun. And then when I became a junior, I tried out for the junior play. It was silly and frivolous, but I had a good time because I got a small part in it. And then in my senior year, they changed the system so that anybody in grades 9 through 12 could try out for every play. And then they announced that the fall play was going to be The Crucible, a drama, the first drama they'd ever done at Warwick. And I tried out for that, and I got a small part. And being in that play at that time was a really bonding experience. And then we decided to form a drama club. We did a one-act play. I got a part in that, and then I tried out for the spring play and got a part in that as well. And then it was announced that we were going to do a musical for the first time. And so I tried out for Camelot. And then the director took me aside and said, you know, you'd make a good stage manager. And it was at that point that I learned that I really did like working on this part of the stage that wasn't lit up. And I graduated, and that summer I took a job at a woodworking mill in Lidditz, and that fall I started at Penn State Berks campus majoring in electronics technology. But I kept in touch with my theater friends from high school. And they asked me to come back and help with the fall play, which I did. Then they asked for some help with the spring play, and I did. And then the director asked me if I would stage manage the spring musical, the Music Man. And I agreed to do that. And you know, by this time my group of theater friends was expanding, and it now included a 10th grader who was one of the dancing girls in River City. And then, not what you're thinking, by that time I was seriously dating a minister's daughter that I had met at a Lutheran church retreat, and the dancing girl was just one of the group of theater friends. And then I graduated. No, wait a minute. I had already graduated. I'm getting behind. And then the director of that musical said, there's a program at Penn State's main campus, a theater apprenticeship, that I think you'd be good for. And he put in a good word for me, and I got accepted in that. And that summer, I got to work on 5 different plays. It did something different for every play. It was a great experience. And then I came back after that to the job at the woodworking mill and my second year at Penn State. And then one day at the mill, my 10th grade basic electricity teacher walked in the door. His name was Roy Clare. He and his brother had a sound company up in Lidditz, and they were looking to have some big speaker cabinets built. Roy asked what I was up to, and I said I was majoring in electronics at Penn State. And he said, well, if you're taking electronics, how come you're working with wood? You should be working for me. And I said, offer me a job. And then he did. And a couple months later, I started that job. And I was told I was not going to be sent out to do shows. I was going to be the first employee in the electronics shop. My job was to repair electronics and also to help build a mixer for the upcoming Elton John tour, Elton's first U.S. tour. And then the following week, the office called and said, we need to send you out to do a couple shows with Steppenwolf. And of course, I didn't know shit about doing a big PA, but they sent me out with somebody who did, and we pulled it off. And then, you know, that was kind of the pattern. I'd get sent out for occasional shows, but I was still mostly working in the electronics shop and finishing that mixer for the Elton John tour. And then Roy's brother, Gene, who was doing the tour, told me that because of my vast knowledge of theater from high school and college, he had offered my services to the Elton John folks as the lighting director on the tour. So I kissed the minister's daughter goodbye and went out on my first rock and roll tour. Now, Elton wasn't carrying any lights on that tour, so my job was to put together a light show from whatever was available in the theater that we were playing that day. And I sucked. The third show was at the Wildwood Convention Center, and they had a real rock and roll lighting system and somebody who knew how to run it, so Elton actually had a good light show that night, not by my hand, of course. The next night we were in Asbury Park in a theater that had no communication between the spotlight booth and the lighting controls on stage, so I had to call the show from the spotlight booth and leave the rest of the lighting to the guys on stage to just make it up. And it really sucked. And then I was fired from the tour. I was back home in a little bit more than a week. And then I did something that most of you would probably consider a dick move. I waited till the tour was over to call the minister's daughter back. And over for real, like after it ended. But in the meantime, I was hanging out with a dancing girl. And then she graduated from high school, and then we got married. And then 44 years and a day later, we got married again, but that's a story for another time. But Judy, if you're out there, I hope your life has been as interesting and fulfilling as mine has. Thank you.